So, g'day, Stuart. It's lovely to see you there. I have been getting in touch with a few of my friends and asking them about their COVID experience. What have the last few months been like for you?
Good question. Well, we had a little bit of forewarning from our workplace. So it was a couple of weeks before we were basically asked, look, if you can work from home, you should work from home. So the first thing I did was actually make a big long list. And of course, it was too long. This is everything I'm going to do with this unique opportunity in time. It was all very novel. And I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a home office I can work from. So things could progress in that way. So but of course, yeah, it was too long. But some things have worked out. The upsides, I guess, the benefits. So I guess one of the big ones is I've got a friend that works down the road, and we run 3 times a week or ride. I've got surrounded by Blue Mountains wilderness here, so northeast, southwest, and we do like a 6-kilometre run or a longer ride at lunchtimes. That's been fantastic for our friendship, as well as kind of debriefing, like the social aspect, socially distant social aspect. It's been fantastic, as well as for my health, because, he turns up on my door at 12 o'clock and rain, hail or shine, we've been out the door. So I feel good in sort of a variety of different ways, Yeah, we've been able to connect and talk and run. So that's been fantastic. I guess the other thing is that it's a kind of, I don't know whether this is a paradox or not, but I suddenly feel like our home is a home to me. I've got a better sense of home. Like when we moved here in the Blue Mountains, that was about 7 years ago. It was our first home, and it didn't have this huge emotional experience of, putting the key in the door and we finally bought our first home. No, I didn't have that. But now I do. For some reason, just working from home and being home for 2 months, something's shifted. I'm not sure what that is, but it's a good feeling. And having our children here and no commute time. So suddenly I'm seeing them a lot more. Yeah. But in a professional kind of work sense, it's kept, I guess, having a home office, it's kind of kept a lid on busy work. So there's the gaps between sort of tasks or different things. I've got a lot more control over the structure, and I can do a lot more reflection, which has been great. That suits me a lot better.
So how much time do you think you're saving without having to do the commute?
Well, I mean, lucky we've got a flexible workplace. So I work from 2 different offices. One is half an hour drive or 20 minutes drive, and the other one is over an hour on the train. So if I do 3 hours from, say, Parramatta, that 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 hours, 12 hours a week. Yeah.
Yep. Long days.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can work on the train, but that's different. That's different. At home, I can start earlier, and I'm usually finishing around 4:30. And 10 meters away is the lounge room, and the family's there. So, and we can go, and then I can go out for rides with my children or things.
Yeah.
So there's some deeper needs that are being met. Yeah. So, I mean, I know the future doesn't mean we're all just going to suddenly stay home. But there's certainly discussions about maintaining some of these, this flexibility, which would help enormously.
And are those discussions being held by sort of management at Water New South Wales, or is it sort of amongst the staff at home and on the runs with your mate?
No, with management. So we've done a organisation-wide survey just to find out what have been the challenges, what have been the opportunities, how do you feel about different things? What would you change? What would you want to continue and take forward into the future? So it was very good. It was very well designed, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
To
really
get
great.
a good insight. I mean, what's been amazing is the technology has supported all this. So that's been amazing.
Yeah, I've had a few people say, look, if this had happened a few years ago, we would have not been so, well, enjoying's the wrong word, but we wouldn't have been able to adapt quite as easily because we just wouldn't have had the technology, we wouldn't have had the broadband speeds. It's a very first world experience of this being something quite positive, I think, for us in Australia.
Definitely. Look, I was on a conference call this morning and I've got 2 screens set up. So one screen, someone's sharing a presentation and we're talking to that. It makes it very, it makes it productive.
Yeah.
So we're not just on the phone. We're actually interacting with things we need. Yeah. Yeah.
So what things do you want to take forward from the experience?
I definitely think in a work sense that just that better focus and better structure. So just a little bit more time, you know, you can't see it, but there's a wall there behind the computer. And so I've got a poster with the big picture of everything I'm working on. So I just need to look up and just visually for me, it makes a difference to my workday. That, of course, in the office, can't do that. But there's a lot of small things that add up for me. But I guess in a work sense, there'll be a better focus and a better structure. I'm hoping to continue to work 1-2 days a week from the home office. That would be helpful.
Yep.
And look, in terms of my health, I'd love to be able to continue the daily habit. I know that that's probably not going to be possible to the degree that I can do it now. But it's shown me, revealed that, you know, what's possible, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I've had a number of
Makes me happy.
Well, we actually know that when people are happy, they're more creative and more productive. And I think that's one of the things people have said to me is that they hope that out of this, those who were perhaps not feeling very positive or thinking that people working from home would just slack off can actually see how productive it can be for people. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm also aware that, and I've discussed this amongst colleagues at work, that it's so personal. There's a whole spectrum of what people need. Some people can't wait to go back to the office because that's where they really flourish in that environment and their work requires. Yeah. So it's definitely, whereas I think our team can lean a little bit more towards remote work and not be too affected by it.
And what have you noticed in terms of your kids and your local community? What's the experience been like for them? Because, you know, up in the Blue Mountains, you were really threatened by bushfires and then you've gone straight into COVID. So have you, you know, noticed that the communities use this time to reflect a bit on bushfires, or have they immediately been put straight into another alert situation with COVID-19 shutdown?
Again, that would vary a lot because some of the assistance that's been forthcoming from the council, funding from federal government and other organisations to support people who are directly impacted, people who lost their homes or were partially damaged, that's still coming. And that's been made doubly difficult for them. So that's been communicated in local media and different forms. That's been more difficult. Certainly, my personal experience is we've got fabulous relationships with all our neighbours in the street and people in the town. We've got great relationships with people at school and families at school. So there was lots of conversations to make sure people were going okay. Friends in town, I know, you know, one of my friends lost his position because of, you know, there's no international flights. Suddenly the business processes change. So there's definitely been lots of connections with emotional support, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. But it was certainly difficult, you know, from The fires started for us in November behind our house, in the valley behind our house. But then the really large fires, obviously, Christmas, New Year, January, and then massive rains, and then so.
So what do you think, you know, when we talk about this idea of resilience and bouncing forward, as you just said, we've literally had, you know, we've had the fires, we've had the floods, we've then had, you know, like almost, well, the virus isn't really like a plague, but it's, you know, we're getting bombarded on multiple fronts. Have you noticed any particular features or characteristics that have enabled you and your family to, you know, stay strong, or in your local community? What's it actually been that's enabled you to keep showing up each day without feeling quite despairing, I suppose?
Good question. Well, we're a strong family. So I love our family, and we've got, you know, great relationships with our children. I mean, they're only 7 and 10, so these things are more curious than, you know, we were kind of mindful of what kind of impact they were having with the school and conversations with their young friends. So we were very open about all that. We weren't trying to hide anything. And so anything that came up, we sort of, you know, normalized it in a sense, but without, you know, like, I, you know, with my children, I pull out a globe of the earth and talked about global pandemic. So I wasn't trying to sort of hide anything from them. They had a few tricky questions. One time, my daughter at the family dinner table asked this question. She just suddenly spontaneously, so what do you think of the downsides of this pandemic? She's only 10.
Yeah.
And then my young son, who's 7, said death.
Exactly. I know, and I shouldn't be laughing, but
No,
yes,
no,
I mean, there's some pretty awful effects happening when you look worldwide. It really is really full on. We've been very fortunate here.
Yeah. I mean, I chuckled, an awkward kind of chuckle, but that was the truth of the.
It is totally true. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And we have, you know, as I was saying to my son, you know, there are some advantages in living in this big old continent with not actually a lot of people by world standards, and far away from everybody else, because we have actually managed quite well. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing how kids have managed it. And, you know, at the same time, we know that there has been lots of problems with, you know, for some families, it's been an absolutely hideous experience, and those that are most vulnerable have had a dreadful time. But I suppose from where I'm at, I'm trying to look at, well, what is it that we in our community, in our waterway community, want to keep a hold of as we go forward? And I'm hearing similar themes from you about, wow, we actually got time to reflect on what it is we're doing, and the pace at which we live our lives, and the importance of connections, those sorts of things.
Well, I mean, it's you know, a flourishing waterway, the time frames involved, years, maybe for some things, but usually it's a decade or two. So good reflection's important. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Well, thank you for talking to me today. We are getting a whole range of perspectives, so it's great that you had some time to spare. So I will obviously keep in touch and let you know how we get on, and we can continue to reflect together.
Thanks, Joanne. Thank you very much. No worries. Good to talk.